Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are with Tom Fitzgerald, and he is the founder and director of partnerships at FoxCove. Now, Tom, tell us a little about yourself and the company and who you guys service.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Tom Fitzgerald. I am the founder of FoxCove. I started the organization in 2015. And my current role at the company is Director of Partnerships, which is POSH for account management and sales. When an organization reaches out to Foxcove to see if we can work together, they'll normally speak to me first. And then if we successfully, convert convert that organization into a client, I will then be responsible for the account management piece. I work with the rest of the Foxcove department heads to deliver a tailored custom IT solution to the organization. Foxcove, we started off in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have a team there. And then about 7 years ago, I moved to Portland, Oregon, where I live now. And we have a team here. So there are our two main locations. We also support clients remotely, and we help organizations who have multiple offices across the US. And so we're flying here, there, and everywhere to complete some really interesting projects. And a little bit about Foxcove. We are a 20-person IT organization. We started off focusing on managed IT services, keeping the lights on, deploying the laptops, making sure everything was automated and secure. And over the years, as the team has grown, we made a real push into IT leadership. A good chunk of us are all 20 plus year IT vets. We have a CIO, ISO, a CTO, and these are very critical roles, especially for startups and organizations who haven't reached the milestone or grown yet to hire those people. And so they get access to our fractional executive IT services. And then over the years, we've also expanded deeply into compliance. We help clients with their HIPAA, SOC 2, high trust, etc. Office management, we deploy conference rooms, wireless deployments, all shapes and sizes, cloud computing. No one has servers on site anymore. Everything's up in the cloud. And when I started the company, I just wanted to focus on, doing great work and building a great client relationship. And if you do those two things, the business will look after itself. 2 weeks ago, Foxcove celebrated its 10th anniversary. So I like to think, that's exactly what we've been doing.
Well, I think you guys been doing a tremendous job given your guys' history and your journey out of those 10 years. And like you said, we had a conversation prior to this where I told you, one of my favorite things is do the work, you know what I mean? And the rest will show. Just focus on the work and the results will show. And I think you guys are a prime example of that. And the viewers will see
Thank you.
that eventually when we, continue to talk and they're hearing who you've worked with, these big names of these, these apps that are on their phone, and whatnot. But before we get into that, let's talk about your journey and what led you to starting your own MSP. You are British, Australian, American, right? It's like a
Great
triangle.
passport.
Yes,
It's like
three
it's like a
passport, a
triangle.
European one in the in
Not
Oceania,
European
and one in
anymore.
America.
Not European. Thanks, Brexit. Yeah.
Well,
Unbelievable.
just you looks like you have experience not just only, in the VC world and business or not in different countries. So kind of tell
Yeah.
us a little about your history and your journey and your background.
Yeah, thanks. I think to start off with, I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones. I knew at a very early age that I wanted to do IT. And not everyone's that lucky. And so when I finished school, it was straight into, computer science degree, computer science masters, and then grabbing that IT job. And I worked for a couple of MSPs, and then I got a job at Wieden+Kennedy London as part of their in-house IT team, supporting 200 users. Wieden+Kennedy, they've been around, goodness, I think 45 years now, and one of their founding clients was Nike. Wieden+Kennedy invented the tagline, "Just do it." And they started off in Portland, Oregon, where I now live, and they expanded offices to Amsterdam, London, Tokyo, Shanghai. I think they're in Mexico. I think they're in Delhi now. I think they're in Australia. And all of a sudden, you're doing in-house IT for a company who just really emphasized on doing great work and really listening to the client, building great relationships with the clients, but also internally with the team. They really did look after us. and everyone put in the work. You know, everyone's doing long hours, and you get to walk around this office and you get to watch ideas start off as a post-it note, then it goes on a wall, then there's some color, and then next thing you know, you get in the tube, and then you sort of see this big poster on the wall, and there's the ad, and you're just like, wow. And that stuff really stuck with me. And I left London. I moved to Tokyo for a year and worked at the Widen's Tokyo office. So I was able to keep that going and still sort of learn about, you know, great culture. And then I moved over to America and worked for a couple of MSPs, and was so fortunate to be the IT director for some really interesting clients in private equity, law, and some startups. And when you get to work with a great client, you get to just work with these really great people who take what they do seriously. And that includes IT. And these people become your mentors, and you learn from that, and you learn from that. And I left an MSP, joined another MSP, left that. And at that point, I was very frustrated with how these MSPs were treating the clients, were treating us, the engineers, and just thought there was a better way. And that's when I started FoxCove. And you start off by just doing the thing that you're really good at. And if you can do that, you know, hopefully the rest comes to you. And you're able to grow it in a way where you bring in other people who are really good at what they do. And next thing you know, you have a 20-person IT shop offering a whole suite of services.
A vast journey for you for sure. You know, talking about the clients that you got to work with, a lot of people will know this one, Lyft, right?
Mm,
How did that one come to pass? And tell us, you know what I mean, your experience with working with Lyft as, you know, their IT provider. You know, like you said you dealt with a lot of people that love what they're doing and love the
yeah.
business they're in, and they're working towards, you know, crazy goals. Like Lyft, probably $1 billion company right now. I'm unsure, but I know they're huge. How is it working with them?
This is such a great story. It's a bit of a long-winded one, but it does tie back into FoxCove. But the MSP I was working for was supporting a little startup called Dropbox. You might have heard of them. And then the person who there was an individual who was working at Dropbox was sort of the main point of contact for the MSP. That person went on to Lyft. And once that person joined Lyft, they sort of looked around and went, we need IT help. I know this MSP I worked with at Dropbox. Let me call them. And I'm working for that MSP at that time. The call comes in. I hear about it. And I'm like, I need this account. We need to win Lyft. Get me at that meeting. We went in, we won the business. And at that point, I think Lyft was about 200 people. We helped them move into a larger office, then helped them move into an even larger office. And eventually I met this delightful individual who was working at Lyft. And I was like, oh, Tom Fitzgerald, you know, I work at this MSP. I'm the IT guy. And she's like, oh, I'm the one who made the call. I'm the reason you're here. I was like, oh, that's very cool. She's like, my name is Nancy. Great to meet you, Nancy. Anyway, I eventually leave that MSP and I move on to the next gig. And I ran into Nancy again on Tinder, and Nancy is now my wife. And Nancy is also the co-founder of FoxCove. FoxCove is a mom and pop small business. And so I started FoxCove, and then I think about 2 or 3 years in, Nancy quit Lyft, and I was begging her to join FoxCove full time. And she was already sort of co-running the company in the evening to, you know, listen to me whinge about the challenges of sort of running your own company. And so, yeah, a bit of a long-winded story, but these things just happen by, you know, the smallest little thread is pulled somewhere, and here you go. Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting that, I mean, it's like IT has just brought you to so many places, right? It brought you, you know what I mean, all the way to Japan, here in San Francisco, to even meeting your partner, right? And I know
Yeah.
that you have, you know what I mean, a beautiful family with a couple children there. So
Thank you.
I'm sure you look at the IT space and say, this is the best thing that could happen to me. How did the San Francisco area play in all of this? Because I mean, you came here, you worked for a few MSPs, you started your own thing. I mean, San Francisco, you know, there's Silicon Valley there, you know, it's an
Yeah.
iconic area, bunch of
Yeah.
startups. How did it all play together?
I'm going to be frank. The biggest pile of money in the world is right there in San Francisco. And I think even more so post-COVID. We've all gone back to work, we've all gone back to the office, but in terms of venture capital investment, I think there's just been an even concentration of investments in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's the place you go to start a company, not the only place. You got New York, you got Europe, etc. But it is a real walk of life there, for better or worse. And if you just sort of think of this, small geographical area, San Francisco, 7 miles by 7 miles, if you're gonna build a great reputation, if you want to be in a place where your name spreads fast, do it in San Francisco. And when I moved to Portland, Oregon 7 years ago, because after living in London, Tokyo, and San Francisco, my wife Nancy and I, wanted to go start a family, and I was looking for less people and more trees. You sort of find that, Portland doesn't have that sort of growth of startups and sort of growth of business, and it's a bit slower here. And so, you find yourself on the plane flying back down to the Bay every couple of weeks, which is fine. The interesting thing is when new business comes knocking, it's normally from San Francisco, because again, your name's going around in those circles. And I guess what I'm trying to say is it is challenging to try and get your name to sort of leave that geographical market, cross the state line, and plant it here. We don't really have an answer on how to do that yet. Maybe this podcast will do it. Maybe someone in Portland will see this and just be like, we should work with that guy. He should run our IT.
Well, I hope. Prayers for that. So coming from, going from San Francisco area, you say your name's thrown out there a lot. And
Yeah.
we know that, if you want to build like you said, if you want to start a business, that's one of the go-to places to go get VC-backed money. You work with a lot of these VC-backed companies. Tell
Yeah.
us about how you really kind of almost niche down in a way to support those fast growing, companies that are going from, 20 staff to, 100, right? And a lot of these companies they're usually VC backed. Tell us how you got your name thrown around in those type of circles.
Yeah, when I moved to San Francisco 15 years ago, for the first couple of MSPs I worked for, I supported about a half dozen venture capital firms and did great work, focused on the clients there, and built a great reputation. And then those investors, once they found out that I had started FoxCove, started referring my services to their portfolio clients. And we started supporting a couple of startups, and of all different shapes and sizes and budgets and sort of canvases, different challenges. And we just focused on the work, and we just focused on doing great work for the client. And we never went back to the VC and sort of, pressured them, hey, could you get our name out there? Or, is there anything we can do to encourage you to throw us more business? We just focused on the client and doing great work there, and helping, by building out custom IT roadmaps for them to help them make sure their business was going up and to the right. And the nice surprise is that years later, we found out that FoxCove was listed as a preferred vendor on the internal directories for other venture capital firms. And then we found out that our name was being thrown around on Slack groups for COOs and CFOs. And so the portfolio clients were talking to each other and recommending us to other founders, other startups. And then I imagine they were, going back to the VC investors themselves and said, thanks for recommending FoxCove. They've been great. And so we never proactively tried to sell ourselves to folks. We just focused on the work, and our name just naturally, got thrown around.
Yeah, going back to that, the focus on the work and the rest will come. That's why I think you guys are just like a gold standard to that saying, because that's what you guys ultimately did. I mean, the ultimate green flag of being trusted by these VC-backed companies, your name being thrown in these different Slack channels, right? The
Yeah.
word of mouth of you being that go-to IT guy, especially in such a trust-based industry. Now, a lot of your clients, they're preparing for big moments. They're raising money, passing all these, qualifications and security checks and whatnot, right? What does the tech quietly make or break in those moments in ways that founders don't necessarily always see?
It's a great question, and I think it's one of FoxCove's strengths, compared to other MSPs and other organizations in the IT space. But FoxCove, we don't sell software, hardware. We don't resell anything. we only make money by selling our time, our knowledge, our services. And we're not married to any particular, software or hardware. And that frees us to treat every client as a custom canvas. What is the client's budget? That's the size of the canvas. And then we have access to all the colors, all the tools, all the paintbrushes. And so when the client is telling us about themselves, about their business goals, about their milestones, what is their compliance journey? What is their security journey? That allows us to build a custom IT roadmap. We walk them through it. We agree to it. We get to work. And everything that we build and recommend for the client, they own it. They own it all. We just have admin access to the systems. And this frees the client up and it gives them breathing room. It helps them in terms of mergers and acquisitions. We also don't lock clients into lengthy contracts. We're month to month and we don't want to hold anyone to ransom. And if we just focus on doing great work, they'll keep using us. And we've got clients that we've been supporting for years and years and years. But if you're a MSP organization who says, we only sell this software, this hardware, and you have to do what we say. You have to jump into this shaped hole. And if you ever fire us, we're going to press a button and most of your IT infrastructure is going to disappear in smoke. Like that doesn't sound like a great relationship to start off with. And so that's how we sort of treat it. And what we try to do, if we're lucky, organization reaches out to us when they're about Series A, and then we help them get to Series B, Series C, and around Series C, Series D, they're several hundred people strong. And they're about ready to hire their own in-house IT. They'll go hire that person. We train them up. We sort of hand the keys over and just, call us if you need us. And in most cases, they do call us back in the future to help with some projects. And then the folks who worked at that startup years later might leave and go to another startup, and then they call us in. And so the relationships you make because you're hanging out with this organization so much. And the FoxCove team, when we wake up in the morning, for the most part, we go to the client. And so we're hanging out with these people, we're living with them, so to speak, likewise. And we're going to their parties and we're going to their celebrations. And so we build relationships, and those relationships, carry on when they move to somewhere else.
Tom, you're very vocal about, no bloated retainers, no upsell nonsense, no being stuck up on using this only tool or
Yeah.
this only system. The IT world has a reputation for doing the exact opposite. Only wanted to do retainers, MRR, looking to upsell their clients, looking to do this and that. Why did you first plant your flag there, and has it ever costed you a deal? And could your thinking be from the past MSPs that you worked with of you being like, I don't agree with this. I'd run this a lot better?
Yeah, pretty much. Thanks for the question. When I worked for the MSPs before I started FoxCove, it was a huge um, stress for the clients to, and you see this across, all industries, not just IT. The MSP signs up to a client, they promise them the world, sign up for this 1 year, and then the team they put forward isn't the strongest team. The MSP has high staff turnover. We were burning through engineers all the time, mainly because they only got 2 weeks vacation, myself included. And the MSP is trying to sell software where they have high up resell, high markups, etc. And it's not what the client needs. And the MSP, the management I worked for, it's sort of a, if the client doesn't do this, if the organization doesn't do this, sorry, if the client doesn't do this, um, we can't sort of do our best work. And all it really did was just put us in a box. And if you were going to go start your own IT shop, why would you do that? Why would you sort of say, I'm only going to sell this hardware or this software? Why would you limit this? Another sort of interesting point to this, FoxCove, when we hire, engineers, system administrators, etc., we hire people who were working for big organizations, but they were only allowed to look after this piece of software, or they were only allowed to look after this type of hardware. And we'd be hiring these people who would say, I've never touched Google, I've never touched a Mac. And we're like, come on in to FoxCove. We will teach you everything. You will learn everything here. And all of a sudden, you're able to attract great talent who've just been held down. It never really made much sense to me. And if you were someone with, just, I guess, just older thinking, yeah, you might make more money in the short term. I just don't think it's going to last, you know?
So you wouldn't say that it really costed you deals, or would you say that it's opened you up to a lot of new business?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, every time a client calls us, we never say, "Oh, we can't do that." It's like, of course
Mhm,
we can do it. We do it all. And there might be some sort of thinking saying, "Well, you can't possibly do it all." And you go, "Yeah, but you can." And let's kind of be honest. If you really think about it, every organization is either on Microsoft or Google. They're either on a Mac, a PC, a little bit of Linux over here. No, it's either going to be Slack or Teams. Cloud computing, it's either going to be AWS or Azure, a little bit of Google Compute. You are able to, Meraki or Unify. So you are able to comfortably offer that sort of broad range and then offer the sort of unique glue that holds it all together, security, compliance, the stuff that really helps an organization create a secure foundation.
mhm,
And we've been able to hire talent who worked for large companies like Meta. We've hired incredible help desk personnel whose job was to support the executives at Meta, but they were told, you sit at this desk, you don't leave this desk, and if a VP comes over here with their laptop, you just fix it there and then. And
mhm.
they learn incredible people skills. They learn, sort of a great way on how to present themselves, but they're never going to grow and they're going to look elsewhere. And then they find us, we interview them, we hire them. And within a year, their technical knowledge has just absolutely flowered. And once you've been at FoxCove for a couple of years, we turn to them and sort of say, what do you want to do? Because joining FoxCove, and we tend to hire sort of, junior entry level, and then we promote people up. And so after a couple of years at FoxCove, we've taught you such a huge range of things. And then it's like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Do you want to, become a lead and then an architect and then a C level? Do you want to go into account management? Do you want to be the IT director for half a dozen different organizations? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? And that has just really paid off for us. And I think once you slap on, or try to say slap on, if you try to build a great culture and if you try to just treat everyone as owners, they'll sort of tell you what we need to do, where we need to go. And all of a sudden, the pressure isn't just on you as the founder, as like figuring out where we go next, because you built this great team and they'll help you figure it out.
Brilliant. Speaking about culture, you describe FoxCove as like the calm and the chaos. I believe is what you guys say on your website. And you say like you act like an extension of the company, right? So you guys
Yeah,
they're IT providers, but it's like you guys are part of the company. Not
100%.
really a vendor. What does that actually look like day to day with a client? And what happens if the client's saying having like a really bad tech day? What puts you above, the rest of these MSPs?
When I started FoxCove, shortly after I started it, and I went to start hiring employees. It's like, I got to start hiring people. And I wanted to get a painting commissioned so I could sort of hang it up in this office I just got. And so I spoke to my mate in advertising. He's this incredible copywriter. And I was like, help me come up with 3 words to go commission this painting. So I'm talking to him about FoxCove and what I want this company to be. And so the 3 words he chose was cool, calm, and focused. And like, that was it. Like, that was how FoxCove started. We're cool, we're calm, we're focused. And that's what I was trying to teach the staff when I hired them. Anyway, to answer your actual question, startups who get funded. And we've had startups where it's 3 founders and their Series A was $1 billion. It's just this incredible pressure put on them. And they've basically been told, we've written you this great check. You need to hire 100 people this year. You got to hire 150 people next year. We're going to help you find an office. By the way, here's a business card. His name is Tom Fitzgerald. Give him a call. He's going to help you get there. And so when that call comes in, all you're talking about is IT. You're talking about what is the foundational software. Do we want to be a Google shop or a Microsoft shop? Where are we growing? What are our compliance needs, goals, etc. That starts the conversation off, and you'll deliver on those, initial things, and you'll quickly get the trust of the founders. And then the conversation really does sort of open up. And FoxCove, we've become the glue between finance, ops, compliance, security, and IT. And you're helping first-time founders understand that software is culture. You're helping them understand the effects felt when you're helping them draft policies, how this organization operates, how it manages data, how it interacts with vendors. And so because FoxCove just has this great history and experience of helping all these startups and organizations, you're able to sort of tap from that. And you still get to sort of be yourself. And we've got clients who've watched me, gone from one person to 20. They've watched me become a father. They've watched me move and get a mortgage. And so you then also get to sort of lean on them. And some of these, founders, customers, they become your mentors and they become invaluable. Yeah, everything we do really is sort of relationship first. The IT is easy. The IT has never been easier. Like it's the most incredible time to be alive to be doing IT. But all that's really done is just spoiled organizations with choice, and they don't know which way to go. And that's why they call us. And I think, start with the IT, and then all of a sudden you'll realize that you become this trusted partner for so much more.
Brilliant, brilliant. Being in the VC space, what has it all taught you? I mean, you just talked about how, some of these founders of these startups have maybe become a mentor to you. I'm sure you've learned a lot being in the space, and I'm sure the viewers would love to hear how they would be able to be a part of the space or to work with a VC-backed company, right? Or a VC-backed startup. I mean,
Yeah.
when anybody thinks of VC-backed companies in Silicon Valley, you know what I mean? They think of the Apples, right? The NVIDIAs, these heavy hitters. They're like, wow, like must be a lot of money to be made there. How do I get there? So kind of to reiterate the questions of being in that space, what did you all learn and what would take away from it? And what advice would you give to an MSP or just a company in general to kind of get into that space?
It's a great question. And it's so easy to sort of point and go, look at all that money and look at all that growth and look at all these projections and look at all the success. And I think what's easily forgotten is all the failures. And I personally embrace failure, and I haven't, failed too much. But if you're going to fail, fail hard. And failing means you've learned something. And the reality is we've supported a lot of startups, great ideas, great teams, and those startups aren't around anymore. It's a very tough thing to start a company, get VC funding, and the VC funding is a bet that your idea is going to make it, and it doesn't always make it. And I think you'll learn from that. And if you've got it in you, you'll go and start another company. If FoxCove was to crash tomorrow, I would take a few months off, go do some woodworking in my shed, and then I'd go start again. And I would be smarter, quicker, leaner. I would know who to call. I would get there again. And if you look back in sort of the last 15 years, investing is chasing the next great idea. 15 years ago, all the money was going into social media. Then it was big data, then biotech. Now it's AI. We've tried so much AI software and it's crap. There's nothing there. And a lot of these organizations aren't going to be around in a few years. And that's a, harsh thing to say, but I think it's a reality. And you can do your real best and you can just build the most amazing IT infrastructure, and you can help deploy very thoughtful IT and IT projects. And everyone there could be working their just absolute hardest, and it just doesn't work out. And, just be so grateful you got the experience. And I am so, so grateful for every client that has ever worked with FoxCove, to be given that opportunity to show up, to be able to be like, okay, how do we paint our masterpiece here? And that's something I really try to remind the team, the FoxCove team. It's just like, we can always do better, but we could also fail. And when you think of fail, we thought this was going to be the right piece of software. We thought we could deploy it in this way where it would really roll out. And just sometimes you can't please everyone. So learn from that, do better next time, really listen harder.
Tom, if you had to go back before 2015, right? When before you started Fox Cove, and you could change one maybe thing that you used to think, so like a mindset that you used to have,
Mm,
or a frame of mind that you used to have. If you can go back 15 years and change that, or change something you did, or learn something now that you've now learned, and go back with it, what would you
yeah.
change?
Great question. I mean, I started Fox Cove by, taking the one thing I did really, really well, being an IT director and turning that into a company. And then once that takes off and you're growing and you've got employees, all of a sudden you are, um, you're taking care of HR, you're taking care of billing, you're taking over managing the operational piece of all of this. And that pulls you away from what you do so much better at. So I kind of wish that I, brought people in earlier to sort of help with that, so I could really focus on the product, if you will. I also wish I reached out to mentors a lot earlier. I'm doing that now. I'm playing catch up now. I'm reaching out to people I worked with 15 years ago, 10 years ago, because all of a sudden you're like, crap, I run a company now. I've got no idea what I'm doing. And I just really wished I reached out to people earlier. And you just need someone else to listen and tell you you're doing a great job. And that makes a huge difference. And then the other thing that FoxCove is doing now that we kind of wish we did sooner. All of our business comes to us through referral, which is incredible. Wouldn't change that for the world, but you can't just have all your eggs in that basket. And you can't really control it. You can't control when the next client calls. So now at the start of this year, we've made a big push for SEO, help with our website, building out a sort of Google business presence. And I kind of wish we did this years ago. It's straightforward stuff. And, all of a sudden you're reaching out to old clients saying, hey, could you write us a Google review? I think it would have been a lot more helpful if we started doing this years ago, because it would have just brought in, I think, it would have exposed us to folks who I think would be great customers for us and will be great for them, but we just don't know, we don't exist because we're all in different circles. So yeah, those three things. Yeah. Start with that.
I think you said it all. I mean, to kind of add on to what you said about mentorship, I think you said you're kind of playing catch up, and that's one thing that I've learned, luckily, at such a young age here in my 20s, is that mentorship is so key to success, because running a business, I mean, you're new to all of it, right? Every part of the way you're new to it, unless you've started and you scaled your own company. I mean, Foxcove is your baby, right? That's your first
Yeah.
one. So everything that you do from now on is new. It's something that you're doing that you've never done before. And having somebody to kind of hold your hand and to go to and say, "Am I doing this right? Is this the best way to do
Yeah.
this?" Is like game changing, because I think when it comes to like getting better at something, it's just repetition and quality, and then a quick feedback loop, right?
Yes.
Because once you have quality reps and you get that feedback loop as quick as possible, then you then can be like, okay, I did this wrong. This is why I did it wrong. Let me do it better now. And then the
Yeah.
mentorship, if you add on mentorship to that, it's like you're just fast tracking yourself to success, because you know exactly what went wrong, and you're able to get more reps at more qualities with better feedback loops. Does it kind of make sense? And I
It
think
does.
that you're
Yeah.
seeing the same thing.
It's it is not hard to say, but it's easy to forget to
Yes.
go and ask a client, how are we doing?
Yes.
And like so many of us, we're on back-to-back Zoom calls, and I see my clients very frequently, walk into their office and high-fiving people and having some meetings in person. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, sitting in the office with the CEO, the CEO, and you're just like, oh yeah, how are we doing? Do you have any feedback? Like anything, is the team doing okay? Am I doing okay? Any critiques, comments? You just sort of don't know. And because you're so focused on the work and you're so focused on delivering, thoughtful projects on time. And it's interesting being, married to your co-founder, because you've lived this life where, you know, both of us are sort of, we've got this baby, which is FoxCove. We also have two other kids. And, normally I think most individuals, they're not married to their co-founder. And so they've sort of got that different relationship. But so easy for my, wife and I to just be focused on the day to day of running a small business, and you spend your evenings and weekends thinking we shouldn't talk about work, we should focus on the other children, which we're very good at. But again, you're just sort of stuck in this feedback loop where and that's the funny thing, where it's like we've just passed our FoxCove just passed our 10th anniversary, and my marriage also just passed 10 years of anniversary. And at the start of both the company, when the company started, my wife and I, we didn't want to step on each other's toes, and we had to clearly differentiate our roles of who's doing what at FoxCove. But now that the company's hit 10 years, the conversation's more like, do you still want to do this? And you have to kind of remind yourself that, like, you begged your wife to come and join. And next thing you know, like, we're 10 years in, it's like, do you still want to work here? Should I trap you here? Should I free you? I know it's a bit of a ramble, but it's just sort of really interesting because you can get so focused on the work and trying to control everything for high success. And you just got to take a step back and just ask the client, ask your partner, how am I doing? How are you doing? Do you want to keep doing this?
Very interesting. I think a lot of people do forget that, and that's a phenomenal point. I think this podcast makes me want to go move out to Silicon Valley and over there in San Francisco. But to kind of close us out here, Tom, what
Mm.
would be one takeaway that you would give to an MSP out there? And then what would be something that you would say if a VC-backed startup is watching this and they looked up your name and they want to learn more about you, of why they should work with you?
Ooh, I think my advice to the MSP is, and maybe this is happening more of, but it certainly wasn't when I was working for them 10 plus years ago. I think every MSP owner really has to look after their team, because your whole organization leaves the office, at 5:30 every day. It is your team that delivers the service to your clients, delivers the experience, delivers the outcomes. It's not the software or the hardware. It is your team. And I think, especially coming from a European background where we have, more vacation and more benefits, I think in America, if you want a healthy MSP to last, really look after your team and really make sure that your team has the potential to grow in the positions that they want to. Let them choose their own adventure. I can't wait for one of my team members to tap me on the shoulder and say, I want your job. Get out of the way. Be like, come on through. And then if there's a startup out there who, just got invested from a venture capital firm, or they're trying to get invested, if there's a startup out there who doesn't know how to navigate IT, has questions, give me a call. Let's go get coffee. Tell me about your business challenges. Tell me about your business goals. I'll tell you for free how to get there using IT. Let's have a good chat. And if you like what you hear, maybe hire FoxCo for a small job. You like that? Hire us some more. It's a relationship first thing. And again, I'm one of the lucky ones. I love IT, but I love working with people more. And again, I'm so grateful to run a company where I get the opportunity to just work with so many interesting startups, organizations, and people. It is amazing. 20 years ago, you hear about people telling you, if you love your job, it doesn't feel like work. But you never sort of think that, 20 years later, you get to be in that position. It's obviously stressful being a small business owner and keeping the lights on and what's going to try and take us out next. But yeah, you can get there. Just really focus on what's important to you, and the rest will come.
I think those are great words. Brilliant. Tom, I've loved having you on. I think you've given us a lot of different insight that we've seen from other guests on. So I thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, that was Tom, and we'll see you in the next episode.
FoxCove.com. Come and find me. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, DeAngelo. Take care.